What's up, War Report family? Is Cam Coleman the best returning wide receiver as opposed to some guy over there named Williams on the other side of the state?
Midweek Report coming at you this fine Wednesday, brought to you by our friends at the Rage Room. Visit them at 1510 2nd Avenue in Opelika, Alabama, or if you're in the Birmingham area, 2616 7th Ave, Birmingham. They have axe throwing up there in Birmingham. So if you got to get that extra rage out, if you got to get your caveman on, they got you covered there up there at the Rage Room. Again, 2616 7th Ave in Birmingham, 1510 2nd Ave in Opelika, Alabama. Guys, join as a member. We're doing lots of great work here. Lots of Auburn basketball to cover. Ike is going to be on the road. I'm going to be here at home in Neville. You can keep that work going by joining as a member, $5.99 a month. We appreciate all our members. You can also give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. We appreciate you guys for doing that as well. See if we can get 25 given away tonight. Help us out. 25 memberships tonight. If you're in the Auburn, Opelika area and you are hungry, our friends at Los Amigos have you covered. Visit them at 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama. Serving up some sweet eats over there. Great place to watch the game. Clean, friendly. Los Amigos Mexican restaurant. And if you're eating at Los Amigos, it's likely because the Rogue Shop gave you the munchies. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. I got Richard, longtime sponsor of the War Report. He's putting something nice in there for every War Report customer. We appreciate you guys for helping us continue to patron Rogue Shop. Let them know that the War Report sent you when you visit.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate everybody who's jumping in here with us tonight as we talk a little projections for the 2025 season. Cameron Coleman is coming back, of course, to the Auburn Tigers. But the question is, Cam Coleman versus the field. Who would you take? Is he the best returning wide receiver in the SEC coming up this season? Let me remind everyone. All SEC last year included the following names: Ryan Williams from Alabama.
Okay.
Luther Burden III from Missouri, first team.
Right.
Second team, Andrew Armstrong of Arkansas, Keandre Lambert-Smith of Auburn.
Ooh.
Third team, keep my scroll going on right here, Trey Harris of Ole Miss and Kevin Coleman from Mississippi State. So those were the 6 wide receivers, first, second, and third team, that were voted amongst their peers as the best receivers in the SEC last year. The question is returning receivers, right? Trey Harris declared for the NFL draft.
Okay.
Kevin Coleman, if I'm not mistaken, has transferred to Missouri, so he will still be in the conference. But he is going to be at a new team next year that will have a new quarterback. I don't know who it's going to be. It's not going to be Bionic Cook anymore. It's going to be somebody else there from Missouri playing quarterback. Andrew Armstrong going to the NFL. Keandre Lambert-Smith going to the NFL. Luther Burden III going to the NFL. So there are only 2 names on this list that are actually returning receivers that will still be in the SEC. Ryan Williams at Alabama and Kevin Coleman at now Missouri next year. So, Mike G, what say you? Is it Cam Coleman? Is he better than Kevin Cole? Is he the best, at least the best Coleman returning in the SEC next year? What are your thoughts on it?
It's tough. This is tough. This is tough for me because at the end of the day, there were some really good receivers in the conference last year.
There were.
It's so funny when we're talking about this. Now, what I didn't hear in that list going back, Keandre Lambert-Smith made all SEC. Second team?
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But Cam Coleman didn't make any team?
I think he was on the freshman team, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, interesting. The freshman team. They relegated my guy Cam to the freshman team. I don't know about that. This comes down to Ryan Williams and Cam Coleman. I think that there was a concerted effort.
I'm looking at it right now. All freshman team for 2024, Ryan Williams and Cam Coleman were both on that list. First team, all freshmen.
Okay. Yeah, these guys are clearly box office. As a matter of fact, during the season, I said that I thought, I don't even think, I know Cam Coleman is just as talented as Ryan Williams. There was just a more focused effort on getting Ryan Williams the ball than there was getting Cam Coleman the ball until the last 3 games of the season, where they really you could tell the focus was on getting Cam Coleman the ball.
Right.
Week after Hugh Freeze said, oh, well, we got to take what the defense gives us. Okay, I get that. I do. But that's not what they were doing at Alabama with Ryan Williams. So that we're clear, they were just throwing him the damn ball. Just throw him the ball.
True.
That's why you go out and get Cam Coleman. Whatever coin you dropped on Cam Coleman, you dropped it because he's a guy that you're just going to throw the ball regardless. And let him go do his thing. He should be that good. You had a quarterback good enough to get him the ball. Peyton Thorne could get the ball to Cam Coleman.
I mean, he did when it was time to at the end of the year. So I think there's no reason why he couldn't have more. Well, in fairness, Peyton Thorne was trying to get him the ball earlier in the year, and I think he was forcing the ball to him a little bit early, and which resulted in a few interceptions. Whether that was tip passes or just bad decisions. But yeah, at some point in time, they were like, all right, well, we just can't force him the ball. But it wasn't to your point, game plan to say, these are ways we're going to get him the football. It was just line it up and we'll just see if we just throw it over there in his direction, see if he can go get it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Which one of these dudes would you rather hang out with? Dude on the left or the dude on the right?
Well, the dude on the left, you were kind even in the picture that you found of him, because you could have found one where he's got his nails painted like he's a Tennessee wide receiver. But listen, man, but to be fair to Ryan Williams, I've never had an actual conversation with him.
Okay, all right.
But Cam Coleman just seems like a cool dude. Like, he's just like a very chill, humble, despite the fact that he is supremely talented, he seems really humble and just like a kind of good-natured dude. So, I don't get them vibes from Ryan Williams, and maybe that's my bias creeping in. Maybe I am a little biased, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm telling you right now, right? If Auburn threw the ball at Cam Coleman as much as Ryan Williams got the ball, those numbers are not only comparable, they probably exceed what Ryan Williams did. I would argue.
Look what Keandre Lambert-Smith did last year with less targets than Ryan Williams did.
Right.
So if he's getting comparable targets, if you just elevate Cam Coleman to the Keandre Lambert-Smith level of targets and receptions, then you're already going to get a highly productive receiver.
Agreed. So, I mean, that's where I'm at with this. I just think, when you're trying to measure this, I think you have to look at what were their yards per catch last year? Right?
Yards per catch.
Okay, let's see. Ryan Williams was 18 yards per catch, which is pretty damn good. Cam Coleman was 16.2 yards per catch, which is, again, that's in the realm. I mean, that's comparable.
Yeah.
To me, right? That's comparable. 2 yards of depth. I mean, that's right in the same wheelhouse, and that's why I think if he gets targets like the other dude got, then the numbers will be the same. These are two extremely talented kids, though. I want to say that. I know we get caught up in some of the back and forth about this school and that school, but to be clear, Both kids are really talented. Some of the things that Ryan Williams did on the field last year, you just can't teach.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, again, you can say that exact same thing about Cam Coleman.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff he does, it's just a virtue of his God-given ability. Like the one-handed falling back catch that I don't even remember who it was that he made that catch against. Like you can't, I don't know. You could put me out there on the field and be like, hey man, this is how Cam Coleman made that catch. I'm not making that catch. 10 times out of 10, I'm not coming down with that.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But it seems criminal that Cam Coleman only got 55 targets last year.
Right.
Keandre Lambert-Smith had 50 catches. So that in and of itself was just, it was mind-boggling that we didn't get the ball to him more, but it is what it is. And then when you look at it, Ryan Williams had 87 targets last year.
Right.
55 targets to 87 targets. He had 32 more targets than Cam Coleman. And what did that produce? Well, he had 865 yards receiving. Cam Coleman had 598. Now, when you do the math, right, like it's I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking you got 267 yards of difference, right? And if you slice that up over those 32, right, like catches or whatever, that's about 8 yards per catch, inside 10 yards per catch. So give Cam Coleman those 32 extra receptions and he blows you away.
Yeah. Nah, listen, the bottom line of this, or not the bottom line, but one of the biggest factors in whether or not we see the fruition of one of these two raising to the expectations, because we'll be at SEC Media Days. This will be our 4th year coming up, going to Media Days.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to ask the question of who's going to be on the preseason SEC team, right? They're going to ask which
we vote.
And there is, I would find it difficult to believe that those two names aren't going to be high on a lot of ballots out there. Not just Auburn, like Ryan Williams, Cam Coleman are probably going to be high on a lot of people's ballots going into the season. And whether or not they live up to that hype and the expectation is going to largely have to do with the performance of the offenses around them, particularly the quarterbacks that are getting them the football. And we pretty much know who Auburn's quarterback is going to be going into next season, barring some sort of
Jackson Arnold. Yeah.
Right. Some sort of crazy situation. Jackson Arnold's going to be the quarterback at Auburn next season. Who's going to be the trigger man for Alabama next year? And what does that offense look like with that person running the show? I don't have the first clue about that right now, because number one, I don't keep up with what they've got going on. Number two, we know that Milroe's not going to be that guy. You never saw any of the backups there. So, and they had, to my knowledge, they haven't gotten some stud quarterback transfer out of the portal. So, like, what does that offense even look like? Who is throwing the ball to Ryan Williams next year?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Kalen DeBoer inherited the most talented roster any coach has ever inherited.
Yeah.
And I would argue he disappointed. Right?
He definitely disappointed Bama fans who thought that nothing was going to change. They were just going to walk out there and no, the dynasty continues. Like, nah, fam, that's not.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. But did not continue. You did not make the playoffs. You did not do a lot of the things that Nick Saban was automatic at doing. And if you're Ryan Williams, you're okay right now because you got 87 targets. So at least they threw the ball at you a ton. Now, I think that's why a lot of people were like so worried at the end of our season. It was like, not only did we not make a bowl game, but our guys didn't get a ton of targets.
Right.
Are they going to get mad and dip and go someplace? Because if you were Cam Coleman, your market value is still sky high.
Right.
You're going to get the bag if you hit the portal from anybody,
for sure,
you decide to go. So coming back this year, they've got to get those targets up there, man. Hugh Freeze has got to make that happen. Now his quarterbacks, think about it this way: his quarterbacks average like 400 yards. 400 yards. I'm sorry, 400 pass attempts per season.
Yeah.
Right. Prior to coming to Auburn. Right. For one guy to get 87 targets, that's like 20%, over 20% of the pass attempts from the quarterback going at one guy. But if you are that dude, if you're Cam Coleman, if you're one of the top receivers in all college football, there's no excuse. You should be getting the ball thrown at you that much. 87 targets, dude. We've seen seasons from LSU receivers with more than 87 receptions. Matter of fact, they had two receivers that bested 87 receptions last year. So to be the best, you have to have the opportunities. I think that he has the talent to be the best. And the only reason you don't make that, Ryan Williams makes that all SEC list and you don't make it, is because you didn't get the targets. It wasn't because of his talent.
Yeah. Yeah, again, we talked about this going into last year. Like if Cam Coleman doesn't have a good year, which I would argue he did have a good season based upon, what all was asked of him, it's not going to be because he's not talented enough to have a good season. Right? Like he's not a bust. Like that's like, get that out of your mind. It's because somehow Auburn failed him in those regards. Now he had some drops early in the season, true enough, but I think if anybody is saying you're looking at Cam Coleman's production last year and you're like, he's a bust. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like that, you're crazy talk. That's crazy.
Yeah,
talk.
That's crazy talk. Yeah, that's crazy talk. I don't think anybody really thinks Cam Coleman is a bust, but they probably have questions about the opportunity in this offense. Statistically, this offense moved itself forward. My good friend Chris Marler reached out to me today. He dropped an article talking about what happened in the SEC this past year, right? And he had in his article he had like what'd you call it, like the 3 letdowns essentially of the season. Ike, this is some interesting work here. Like I think he called it SEC grades, and or 3 highs and 3 lows, right? And his lows, he was like 4 straight losing seasons, crazy, red zone offense, and funny enough, losing to Diego Pavia again, right? And I think when you look at the red zone offense and you look at the offense as a whole, that was the biggest letdown for Auburn. And those guys on that side of the ball, they were all let down by this offense this past year. Jarquez was let down by this offense. Peyton Thorne was let down by this offense. And everybody in the receiver room was let down by this offense. Keandre Lambert-Smith, yes, he almost had a 1,000-yard season. He undoubtedly should have had a 1,000-yard season. He was good enough to have a 1,000-yard season. He did what he did on only 50 receptions. Yeah. Right. Again, you've got these guys out here and they've got so many more opportunities. Right. Now, when you look at the numbers, Ryan Williams had 87 targets and 48 receptions. Right. And then when you contrast that with somebody like Keandre Lambert-Smith, he had 50 receptions on 79 targets.
Right.
So he had fewer targets and more receptions and more yards and more touchdowns, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. No, wait, same amount of touchdowns.
Yeah, but I think they had the same amount of touchdowns.
Same amount of touchdowns. Yeah. So it's but if it's a tie, it goes to the senior. So he had more touchdowns. So end of the day, you got to get those targets up. And when you look at the averages, if the targets go up, the numbers would be through the roof. Right. They should be through the roof for a Cam Coleman. And that's where you got to live if you're Auburn, I think. So it's exciting times. Like I said, we talk. It's fun to talk about who's better than who. The truth is, both these kids are extremely talented. Make no mistakes. Ryan Williams is box office. I thought he crapped the bed in the Iron Bowl personally.
He had
dropped
a
the
rough Iron
touchdown
Bowl, that's for
pass.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
he had
fumbled.
the fumble early in the game. He had the
Mhm.
drop later in the game. He had a rough game.
Yeah, right. So like ultimately it wasn't his best game. But I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking, all right, well, Cam made his touchdown catch.
Yeah.
There was some argument on social media about whether it was truly a moss or not. I thought it was close enough to be called it a moss, personally. But it was a great catch, right? He made a contested touchdown catch on a ball that maybe could have been thrown a tiny bit better, but Peyton did the job and he got it there. So
Yeah, I
ultimately,
mean, listen, that ultimately, but here's the thing that I am looking forward to next season is seeing an offense, to your point, that is going to stay on the field longer, and we're able to convert on those critical downs and distances more consistently, so that you do have more opportunities for those guys to be able to make
yeah,
impact plays.
that's fair.
And I think that's the biggest thing that Auburn needs to be able to do next season is critical downs and distances. Can you extend the drive? Can you stay on the field? And that goes for the plan and the execution, right? Like we got to figure out how to stop being incompetent when you need to get first downs more consistently next year, because it just
Mm,
was not the level of competency for the execution on this offense, whether that was penalties or play calling or errant decisions, was way too high last year, way too high. Like I don't want to have to sit and recount the number of bad things that happened on third and fourth down when you needed it last year. It's just crazy. Or
yeah, I don't
things
know how
that
to put.
made you get into third and long because you didn't do well on first and second down, which put you in bad situations on third down.
Yeah, average time of possession of 27 minutes and 13 seconds last year. Right. So on average, the other team had the ball longer than you had the ball.
Right.
And if
Which
you,
is fine if you're going to score a bunch of points, right? If you're going
yeah,
to run tempo and score a bunch of points, all right, great. But you weren't scoring no points. You were just giving the ball back to the other team a
yeah,
bunch of times.
that's
Oscar Chapman
roughly
probably
about
was shanking punts because he was tired of punting by the end of the year.
that's roughly about 6 minutes of difference in time of possession.
Yeah, which is way too
Right.
much.
That's way too much. And in close games, those 6 minutes matter. They have the ball 6 minutes longer than you do with all the close games that Auburn has played over the last 2 years. That's part of where you're losing games. And you've got to
Yeah, I
change
mean,
that.
you can go back and look at two games in particular come to mind when I think about that. The Missouri game last year
Mm,
and the Vanderbilt game last year. I think that you lost those games primarily just because of an inability to find a way to close in those moments, right? Like you think about the Missouri game, you catch a touchdown in the back of the end zone right there, and it's a different ball game. You make a better pass to freaking Valdo, who's wide open. It's a different ball game. You and Sam Jackson get on the same page, and you're able to make a hook up there on third down. Different ball game. So not being able to convert in crucial situations, and then to add to the ridiculousness of not catching the touchdown, the next play, or in that drive with a missed field goal, right? Like you're compounding the ability to convert in critical situations. You
right.
go to the Vanderbilt game, like Vandy just had the ball. Number one, field position was a big thing. I don't know how many punters last year all of a sudden became freaking the best. Like I don't know if they were just passing along bionic legs to all the punters that had to face Auburn last year, but the amount of times that you're getting the ball pinned inside of the freaking 10-yard line consistently by a punter is ridiculous.
Right.
But between field position and time of possession, it made it to where that game was closer than it should have been, and Auburn just wasn't able to come up with enough plays to make that happen. Against a defense actually that was giving up a bunch of points in Vanderbilt. So Auburn's inability to do things on offense hurt Cam Coleman as one example from being in this conversation more concretely going into next season, right? People are looking at, if you're just going to look at his pure numbers, you're going to say, oh, he didn't have good enough numbers to be in this conversation. Well, he's kind of a byproduct of some poor offensive execution. So
Right.
that's not just about whether. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at this Tennessee game. Dude just fell, and it was pretty funny. It's only funny because it was a Tennessee guy, but that's not just about Cam Coleman's talent, ability, all of those things. That he is a victim in this larger problem that exists for the Auburn offense. And hopefully they've done enough to cure that going into next season. But we will see soon enough. We will definitely see soon enough what the deal is with this Auburn offense. That's why A-Day is going to be so fun, man,
It's
because
going to be
I'm looking
fun to
forward to
watch.
seeing what's happening there.
We've talked about this. I think the condensed quarterback rotation is going to make this even more fun. Not having 3 or 4 guys, you got to pretend like 2 of them are in the race when they're really not. We got 2 guys that we got to look at for A-Day, Deuce and Jackson. And one of those dudes is starting, and the other dude should be the heir apparent, and that's it. I love that we could just keep the conversation there. Jackson Arnold is your starter. Great. We don't have to argue about that. Deuce is working to make sure that he's the backup. Because you damn sure didn't promise anything to Ashton Daniels.
No.
Not for real, for real.
No, and listen, the statements coming in from Ashton Daniels prove that he wasn't told, hey, man, you're going to be potentially the guy. He knew he's coming in to help Auburn win games, but not as the first man off the out there to be the quarterback.
Right. So, I'm looking at that and I'm just thinking, all right, here we are. We're there. I'm excited to see Deuce throw the ball. What if he goes out there and he's gangbusters? What if Deuce to Cam Coleman looks like, right?
I don't know, man. That will start that conversation gets so crazy if that happens, because
I need it. Inject that into my veins right now. But I also want to see Jackson Arnold look like that.
Yeah, I was about to say that it becomes way louder if Jackson Arnold looks bad and then Deuce Knight looks amazing, because then you're just
I want to see Jackson Arnold look like he's the man as well too. Like, dude, just give me all the competition between these two.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that we don't have to pretend that there's some kind of 3-man rotation. And they talk about how you got to narrow it down really quickly to 2 guys. Well, you got is 2 guys, really.
Yeah. Listen, speaking of SEC media days, here's a question, and we will definitely get back to this conversation at some point in time. Who's coach gonna take to SEC media days, right? Like, is he gonna go ahead and say Jackson Arnold's my guy?
You have to,
and let him be at SEC media days as a representative?
Yes, 100%. Remember that first year they didn't take Peyton?
Correct.
Right.
Well, Peyton wasn't even there.
No, he got there. He got there in December.
Yeah, I mean, but he wasn't there that spring. Yeah. He had barely been there. That's what I'm saying. Like.
Yeah, you didn't take Peyton, even though it was clear that you were giving him the job.
For sure.
And I get why maybe they thought, hey, that we're not going to take Peyton. But, dude, come on, man. Like, this is where we have to be. I think, personally. This is where we have to be if we're Auburn. You have to be able to change the narrative, the way people are looking at this. It's just been... I think it hurt Hugh that the perception over the last 2 years was that he just handed Peyton the job. Yeah. I believe that Peyton was the best dude for the job, but the perception that he just handed him the job was not good.
And let's be clear, that's Hugh Freeze's fault.
Well, yeah, it's his fault.
Yeah. Yes. He created that narrative with the rhetoric in which he used around that quarterback situation, right? Like, when you go into the first season talking about he's pressing and that's why, we're just going to go ahead and name him, that sounds like you handed him the job. When you go to the bowl game and you talk about open quarterback competition, but then a couple of weeks later you come back and you're like, hey, well, Peyton Thorne is going to be our guy, blah, blah. It seems as if, what happened to the competition? You were like, that's his fault. He created the conversation by the way that he talked about the competition very early in both of those off seasons. And he can just quiet a lot of that noise by making it, hey, it's Jackson Arnold's show, man. Like, let's just forget all this other talk. It's Jackson Arnold, and we're just going to try to bring Deuce Knight along as quickly as we can.
Right. That's it. And I think that's where you're at this year. I said this to to our good friend Zach Blackerby, I think I said it on this show, I think if you're Hugh Freeze, you don't have competition to offer. You've got roles.
Right.
Here's your role. Jackson Arnold, congratulations, you're the starter. Deuce, Ashton, right? Like, you guys are the backups. Right? Tanner, you're the scout team guy. That's where everybody's role is. And I'll, for Deuce and Ashton, I'll hone in your role as we get into fall camp.
Right.
But one of those dudes is going to be the backup. And I would love to see Deuce. I love that Ashton Daniels decided to come to Auburn. I think he provides a maybe some sort of floor for you that you can project, right? But I'm not invested in Ashton Daniels at all, right? Like, I'm invested in Deuce Knight and Jackson Arnold.
Right.
Those are the dudes who you brought in with the real experience. One, you gave a bunch, well, both you probably gave a bunch of money, and they're your future, right? If you're Jackson Arnold, man, boy, your legacy will be about turning those close L's into close W's in 2025.
Right.
Right.
Fortunately for Jackson Arnold, though Peyton Thorne had a better season last year, he doesn't have a high floor that he's got to go and surpass, right? There's still a lot of room for growth in this offense next year. And really, he's going to be judged off of wins and losses, right? Like, how many wins can you get Auburn? And that floor is abysmal right now, right? Like, Auburn didn't even have 6 wins last season. They had 6 wins the year before. You don't have a long way to go to get Auburn fans into a place of, oh, we're improving here. You get to 7 wins and it's like, hey, but he did better than the last year. Now, I don't want to, I hope we're not celebrating a mediocre rise from the cellar, but still at the same time, there's not a lot for him to prove. Just like, breaking passing records isn't some huge accomplishment at Auburn, because Auburn has not traditionally thrown the ball very well. But still, you have a chance to cement a legacy, to your point, by just going out there and being a dude. And hopefully he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, agreed. The beneficiaries of that will be those guys in that wide receiver room: Cam Coleman, Barry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, now Eric Singleton, Horatio Fields, right? Bryce Kane. Those guys will be the beneficiaries of that if they can get it together.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear from the chat, man. Is Cam Coleman going to be the best returning receiver, or are you worried about, do you need to see the QB first? Like, just look, man, drop your nuts a little bit here. Tell me, is it true or is it not? Is Cam Coleman going to be the guy in the SEC, not just for Auburn next year? Put your comments down there in the chat. We're going to hear that on the other side of this break. Get a couple of words from our sponsors. We'll be right back at you with the midweek report.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelika-rageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Midweek report coming at you guys, brought to you by our friends at the Rage Room. Visit them in Opelika or in Birmingham, in Opelika, 1510 2nd Ave. And if you're in Birmingham area, 2616 7th Ave South. Lots of great ways to get stress and frustration out at the Rage Room. Let them know the War Report sent you. They might have a bottle of water for you to drink something while you're breaking stuff. Look, we need you guys to sign up. Sign up as a member. Join one of the greatest Auburn communities that exists. $5.99 a month. We appreciate all our members. You also give the gift to the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. We want to give away 25 memberships tonight, so let's see if we can get a few gifted here to help people get be a part of the Green Name Gang. Also, this show is brought to you by friends at Vintage 2298 Restaurant. Visit Vintage at 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. Vintage is serving up some of the best fine dining you'll have anywhere, but especially in the Auburn, Opelika area. Chef Randall Baldwin is over there cooking up something great for the community. We appreciate him for sponsoring the show. Please go visit them. Let them know that the War Report sent you. Also, our friends at Manscaped. Visit manscaped.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. Joining the over 11 million men worldwide who have trusted Manscaped with their personal grooming and care. So whether it's the boys downstairs or whatever you got going on in your face these days, Manscaped has a product that has you covered. Whether it's the beard hedger, the electric foil shaver, or the lawnmower 5.0, which I think speaks for itself. Lots of other lotions and creams and personal care products that will help you be the best for yourself and for your ladies, guys. So manscaped.com, use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. Check us out on podcast, every single podcast network. We are there bringing you lots of great audio-only content. The Auburn Express, Up-Tempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods. Also, go check out our guys over at the Sooner Spotlight. Josh Marler over there serving up some great SEC content from a Oklahoma Sooner perspective. We appreciate him for being part of the network.
Yes, indeed. Get over here into the chat, starting it off with Damian Smith, who says, shout out to Dr. Greg Carr for being named the College Football Hall of Fame. If you guys didn't see that announcement, he was recently inducted. So shout out to him, Auburn legend there. Some great things happening for former Auburn folks being recognized. And definitely, we'll talk more about that Sunday for sure. If y'all didn't see Sundays, I'm trying to use that as like a news segment time. So I'm going to be dropping some news stuff on y'all about Auburn stuff. I'll try to make sure I get that one in there. Tim, not impressed with Ryan Williams, said he's washed already. Sophomore season, he's done. We don't want to hear any more. It's over for you.
Fan stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hope he's watching the Iron Bowl.
It's if the Iron Bowl is a predictor of future returns for Ryan Williams, then he might be done because that was not a good game for him. Did Auburn give the recipe to shut down Ryan Williams?
Yeah,
fans want to know.
Yeah, we do.
Jamal Pye says Cam could have had the stats if he would have caught them passes earlier in the season, stopping interceptions. He had 3 drops on the year. I don't know that those 3 catches or the 2 deflections that he would have had would have made him have those stats. I think the injuries were more of an issue for Cam Coleman than drops were. I think that's a little overblown narrative, but I agree with you. He would have had more catches had he caught the passes that he dropped, but that would only been 3. So even if those drives continue, I don't know that equates to another 20 to 30 targets and or receptions for him in the season. So
fair.
Ernest Vaughn says Auburn versus Houston basketball game. I'll come back to that. We'll talk basketball in a second. Tim Toolman says no QB to media days, in my opinion. He doesn't think Jackson Arnold should be going to SEC.
No. If he's here for spring, he's got to go. Come on, man. Send a QB.
Yeah, I mean, again, we will definitely talk more about this as SEC Media Days gets closer. But, right now, knowing who is currently on this roster and SEC Media Days being about the best representatives of the team, who do you even send from Auburn right now that's going to be well-spoken enough and that you think is going to be a good representative of the school? Last year, it was Peyton Thorne. It was why am I drawing a blank right now on the other 2 people? And I talked to both of them at Media Days. I did not. Keldrick Falk went last year.
Falk,
yeah. And then Mr. Less Work himself, Eugene Asante, was the third guy who went.
Right.
Keldrick Falk will still be here. So is he going to go 2 years in a row? I don't think that's going to be the case. So you feel like Jackson Arnold, but who would be the other 2 guys that would be good representatives for Auburn? You got to have a guy on the defensive side of the ball. Who's going to be that guy?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that right now. Kay and Lee, maybe. I don't know. He's going to be it'll be his junior season.
Crawford.
Crawford's going to be a sophomore. Do you send your sophomore cornerback out there?
You send the guys that are good. So anybody who ends up on a preseason list right? Well, we'll be
Malik
making the list while we're there. So yeah.
Malik Blockton will be a sophomore next year. He's going to be a good
Yeah.
representative, maybe.
DeMarcus Riddick.
Riddick. So with the comments that Riddick had prior to the Iron Bowl, do you want to put him in front of that firing squad at SEC Media Days?
100%. You want to. We want all the smoke. Listen, if he's going to talk, let him talk. No.
He will get all of the difficult questions in the world if you send him out there.
Yeah, remember that time you said the thing? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is Cam Coleman a guy that you would want to send to SEC Media Days?
I think so.
You send your wide receiver and your quarterback there?
We just did a whole 30 minutes on why he's the best returning receiver. So yeah, you send him. I like Cam, Jackson, Damari. There you go. Just let the defense take the year off.
I was about to say no defensive guys at all.
Yeah. Just let the defense take the year off.
It's going to be interesting, man. We will definitely dig more into that conversation as SEC Media Days gets closer, and we'll definitely know more after spring ends, because we'll see kind of who the best performers were out there during spring. Let's get into some basketball conversation. Well, actually, before we get into basketball, one other question I need to ask you in regard to this whole wide receiver thing. Eric Singleton Jr. coming now onto this team, does that make it where it's going to be more difficult for a guy like Cam Coleman to eat the way he needs to in order to be in this conversation for best receiver?
Where is he playing? Is he playing on the outside? Is he playing on the inside?
I think he's going to be a slot receiver, because that's where the primary targets and snaps were for him at Georgia Tech. I would assume that they're going to try to use him in a very similar fashion. A guy that I think is going to have to figure out now what his role and he's going to he's so similar, in my opinion, to Malcolm Simmons that I think it takes some away from Malcolm Simmons. But like, I think there are other ways that you can make sure Malcolm Simmons contributes. Like, I don't know, man. But again, Auburn's not going to have a shortage of guys that can do stuff.
Well, okay. So here's my question, because this is something that came up on social media. We were going back and forth when people were talking about Perry Thompson, and they were saying, hey, there's going to be a rotation at receiver. And I was like, well, I don't know that that's true on the outside. I mean, in the last 2 years, have we really seen a rotation on the outside at receiver? I don't think we've seen that, right?
No, there has not been.
Yeah, and when you look at the snaps, Cam and Keandre dominated the snaps at the outside. It wasn't close. Now, yes, other guys technically got time out there, but dude, there was not a rotation on the outside. At the slot, it was a different story. Now, in the spring, I told everybody, I was like, they had Robert Lewis playing on the outside. I was like, he's not going to play at the outside during the season. They're going to move him to the slot. And as the season went on, Malcolm got more of those snaps and Robert got less of them. And Sam Jackson was pretty much a non-factor at the slot, like I told everybody he would in preseason, and I got yelled at. But at the end of the day, who's going to play where? Are you going to play more 10 personnel? Is it going to be more 11 personnel? You don't have a Rivaldo Fairweather this year. Do they like whoever's coming up? Rico Walker? Like, who's there at tight end? That's going to be.
You got some freshmen there. You got the kid that transferred in from Maryland. You got Rico Walker coming back.
Yeah.
Brandon Frazier coming back from injury. So you've got some guys, but to your point, how are you going to utilize those guys? And really, for me, it's going to, what I think it's going to be a decision for this coaching staff. And we haven't talked about the returning guys on the offensive line. That's a whole other conversation that we need to have. Plus the transfers that are in, is how well do they feel like they can block without having to have a tight end in there, or have two tight ends, I should say. If they can function off of one tight end, or even go into a no tight end type of situation, and you just have some big receivers out there that you're able to put in situations to block, then you absolutely can do that if you feel as if your offensive line is good enough to pass protect if you need to go to a drop back out of a 4-wide situation. If you can't pass protect and you got to go to max protect situations, that means you got to pull a wide receiver off the field. Like, it's just, it is what it is. So there's going to be a lot on that offensive line to figure that out as they're going through the fall. Through the spring.
Absolutely. So Yeah, like I said, we ask this question all the time. I asked him in my one-on-one, hey, when can we expect to see more 10 personnel if you're going to get all those guys on the field? I want to see Eric Singleton and Malcolm Simmons out there together.
Love to see it. If you see that, then you get an opportunity for Bryce Kane to get more time on the field, right? Because you're going to have to rotate guys. So, and those are going to be guys that are going to be expected to be deep threats from the slot. Like they're going to need to have the speed to make sure teams feel like, okay, I got to have a deep safety out here. You got guys with speed. Let's figure out how to threaten guys vertically, and then let Perry Thompson, Horatio Fields, Cam Coleman catch the in over the middle stuff. Like you're going to run a guy off the slot. Cool. We're just going to run a deep over route underneath. Like all that kind of stuff needs to start happening for Auburn next year in order for them to be productive. But throwing it down the field wasn't really an issue for Auburn. Explosive plays, they were doing it all year. They just couldn't. The intermediate stuff didn't start happening until later in the season when they figured out, oh, Cam Coleman can run more than go routes. Cool. We can just run him on this little 6-yard stop route and voila, we get a free 6 to 8 yards just because they're giving him so much cushion. It's magic.
Yeah.
A lot of chiming in here on who they think might go to SEC Media Days. I like these suggestions here. Falk, Jackson Arnold, and Connor Lew. Connor Lew's a good one.
I like
Connor Lew is a good one.
Always not a bad thing to send an offensive lineman every year.
Yeah. Cam Coleman, Dylan Wade, and Robert Woodyard. That's an odd combination. I don't know that Robert Woodyard would be in the first one I would have thought of. Dylan Wade's a good one. Listen, Dylan Wade, friend of the show. He's a really good dude, well-spoken. Keldrick's definitely going, says Cam. I don't know. Is it how often do they send the same dude 2 years in a row? Like, I just don't know if he's going back.
I think you could, like, for where he probably projects, I would be okay with sending him back.
I would be fine with it as well.
Yeah, slam dunk. Send him back.
And he did well last year, so no reason to not do that. Let DeMarcus Riddick go, says Tim, the tool man. He wants to see all of the chaos as well.
He's like, give me more drama. He said, I want the tea.
Ernest Vaughn says Falk, Arnold, and Blockton are his choices for the guys. So,
Blockton. Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right.
Not mad at it. All right, let's talk a little basketball before we get out of here. Auburn, #1 team in the country.
Still.
The question we asked last show was, can Auburn win without Johni Broome? They answered that question emphatically versus Mississippi State to the tune of 22 points. Ernest Vaughn, he asked this basketball question, is Houston versus Auburn still the best game of the year so far? I would go with Iowa State maybe as the
Iowa
best
State
game
was
just because
game,
it came down to the tip in at the
buzzer.
Everything. Yeah. The big comeback for Auburn. The Houston was a hotly contested game back and forth throughout the whole thing. So maybe that's why you would say that. Or maybe he was asking, was that the most complete game? Because I think that's something I said earlier, that I think like Houston might have been the most complete game that Auburn had played all year. But yeah, this Auburn team, man, good. Like, can we just end the sentence right there? Like, Auburn, good this year. Really great this year.
I had a discussion with my guy, Doug Amos, and he asked me the question, right? Is this the best team in the country without Johni Broome? And I was like, I love Doug. And I was like, see, I don't know that you could say that. I don't think anybody would say that it's still the best team in the country without Johni Broome. But I think the more relevant question is, what's the drop off?
Right.
And
I think the better question is Auburn without Johni Broome still a top 25 team in the country?
Are they still a top 10 team?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to go too far. I would still say yes, they're probably still a top 10 team, but yeah.
They just 20-pieced number 15 team in the country.
Right.
So to me, this is still top 10 team without Johni. When they're on, they can still, if they get hot from the outside, they can still beat anybody. No Johni, 10 blocks.
Yeah.
They had 7 in the first half. Chaney and Dylan and those guys, I think Dylan had 4, Chaney had 3, if I remember correctly.
I'm looking at the stats right now. Blocks from yesterday, you had 4 from Chaney Johnson, 2 from Dylan Cardwell, 1 from Denver
Chad
Jones.
Baker had 1.
Chad Baker had 2 blocks yesterday.
Okay, there you go.
And Ja'Kai Howard had a block.
There you go. So this team is extremely well constructed. It's just a monster of a squad that they have put together. They're deep. They're legitimately 10 deep. We've been saying this all year. We've been saying to anybody who will listen. And it's dumb that they had to win 6 quad 1 games before the non-con was over.
Right.
And still be considered only the second best team in the country. After Tennessee had only played 3 quad 1 games, and they got absolutely booty blasted by Florida.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I think that this team has earned the respect to be able to lose a game and not fall off that number 1 ranking,
especially without your best player.
Come on, man. Let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
Right. The last time Auburn was ranked number 1 a couple years ago with Jabari and Walker. They lost the game and they fell right off the ranking.
Right.
And they didn't want to put them up there, Ike. Remember? It was bordering on. They didn't want to put them up there.
Yeah.
You had clowns like John Wilner voting them like, I think at some point he didn't even have Auburn in his top 25. Stop letting this guy vote. Not in your top 25? What? I mean, at some point, just there's no integrity in the process if you're going to vote like that. But it's always felt like they have to go the extra mile to earn it. I think this non-conference was crazy, not just for Auburn, for anybody. That was a crazy non-conference schedule that they navigated with 1 loss to Duke in Duke's house.
Right.
There were a bunch of Bammers that were all over me about saying that South Carolina win was as good a win as you're going to have all year. And you lost your best player, right? It's a road win, a tough road test, because it happens. It can happen to anybody in the conference.
Right.
Where you go in there and you take a team for granted, and like you winning those types of games are really important to your season.
Everybody who projects the SEC basically says the formula, and Bruce Pearl has said this, so this is not like some novelty statement that I've said, is protect home floor and split your road games. Like that's the way that's the recipe for being able to win the SEC. Yep. And that's, that's tough. That is not an easy thing to do. Is just protecting home floor is difficult, right? But splitting your road games is super tough as well, because every team is, especially if you're one of the better teams in the conference, everybody is there. They have been game planning for you for weeks, trying to make sure they have, what are we going to do? Auburn coming up on the schedule. Your players are all jazzed up. You got an opportunity to knock off the number 1, number 2 team in the country because they're coming in here. That's not an easy thing to do. That South Carolina team looked hapless against Alabama, and they gave Auburn everything that they could, but that's because it was Auburn, not because Auburn's worse than Bama. Bama just lost to a freaking team that they shouldn't have lost to. Let's just be clear.
That's fact. Right, which was where I had all the fun on Twitter yesterday after they lost, because we did a segment earlier in the week with my guy Chris Phillips, and we talked about their power rankings over at SEC Unfiltered, and they had Bama number 2, and I was like, yeah, I don't agree with that. Now Florida didn't help me out any.
I'm about to say, I prior to the game or this yesterday, I would have said Florida was the second best team in the conference. But Florida
which is what I said. And Florida just didn't help me. But Bama lost to 2, so maybe it's still Tennessee. I don't know, but it's not Alabama, and
it's not Tennessee.
I have my questions about them, but they were. There's a bunch of Bama fans saying, "Well, you almost lost to South Carolina." You didn't. Okay, yes, it was close at the end, but Auburn was up double digits in that game for a really long time. And credit to South Carolina for fighting back, but they weren't going to win that game.
Yeah.
Valiant effort. What we do know is that you got beat by double digits on your home floor by Ole Miss.
Right.
That didn't happen. You have almost losses, and I have actual losses.
Right.
So, like I said, winning that game is as good a win as you're going to have this year, and you're going to have to win more like them. Because it is
Absolutely.
very easy to drop those games. The criticism would have been loud, and it would have been very pointed if they had lost that game.
For sure.
So it's a good win. Road wins in the SEC are tough to come by. And when we look at that list of SEC power rankings the SEC Unfiltered put out, Ike, it was like, man, where's the bad team on this list?
Yeah, I mean, arguably, there's no bad teams in the SEC. There's just good and great teams. Like, you've got a couple of teams like maybe LSU, who I don't know how they get wins in this conference coming up, but it's only because the SEC is so good, not because LSU is so bad. Like,
Right.
every team in this conference had double-digit wins going into the conference season. So they were spanking everybody else in the country, and now they're just going to beat up on each other for the next couple of weeks until we get to March and figure out who's the regular season title holder. But yeah, it's a tough conference, man. And to your point, winning on the road in this conference, not an easy thing to do, regardless of who the opponent is.
Absolutely. Right. And that was my only point. It was just that. It was like, hey, Auburn won that game. And Johni Broome wasn't having a great game.
No, he wasn't.
3 of 11 before he went out. And you still found a way to win it. They've just got playmakers. Miles Kelly talked about it. Hey, you just never know on this team who's going to be the guy that goes off for, a bunch of points that night. Yeah. We talked about on our own show about the two guys that needed to step up, Chaney and Chad Baker. And
first
who were the
12
top
points.
2 scorers in those games?
Yeah.
Who
first
were the top
12 points were those guys, and they led the team in scoring. It was amazing to see those guys step up, and they did it efficiently. That's something Caesar and I were talking about last night. It's not like they were just going up there throwing up 20 shots. Like, they took their shots and made their shots. Like, it was just a focused effort from two young men that have not had the opportunities as much this season. But they took the opportunity when it was presented to them in this game. Glad to see them do that. Ready to see them do it again in this next one versus Georgia, because that's going to be a tough game.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun to watch. And I think that they are absolute box office to watch. Credit to Bruce Pearl for putting this team together. They've got to hold it together now. Like, they've got to hold it together, Ike. There are going to be some tough tests ahead. Maybe some tough tests ahead. But, like, I think that they are uniquely equipped for the job, personally. And I'm looking forward to watching them do it. So enjoy the ride, Auburn fans. It's very rare that you get such a senior-laden team like this, where your best players are seniors.
Yeah.
Todd's really good, but I don't think he's the best player on this team. And I think that Jabari Smith was on that team, just happened to be a freshman. And although he was very good, freshmen tend to have freshman problems at times.
Yeah.
Right. Auburn didn't have a whole lot of answers beyond that, and I think that it came back to bite them. So, where are they going to be this year? Well, like I said, I think this team is uniquely prepared to handle the challenges a lot better than that team was. They've got more senior leadership, and they've got better outside shooting, a number of guys who can just bomb it from deep. Yeah. So looking at the conference, it's an absolute gauntlet. I did want to take a look at this, Ike. Our guys over at SEC Unfiltered, these were their power rankings. This is Dave's power rankings. He released these 2 days ago. Auburn at number 1, Bama at 2. Obviously, this will all be different after what happened yesterday. Florida at 3 and Tennessee at 4.
Kentucky might be the second best team in this conference.
They might be.
Ole Miss might be number 3, honestly, looking at like
A&M started the top 25 team.
Auburn and Ole Miss are the only ones that don't have an SEC loss right now.
That's right. Georgia, it may be better than number 9 right now. They snuck into the top 25.
Yeah. I think Georgia's probably a top 5 team in this conference right now.
Mizzou took down Florida. Auburn absolutely blasted Mizzou. Texas I know by record it doesn't look great, but they're a tough out, man.
That Texas-Oklahoma game tonight's going to be interesting.
Is Arkansas one of the worst teams in the conference this year?
Yes.
Do we like that? We're happy about that, right?
I'm 100% happy about not just Arkansas being bad, but Coach Calipari being the coach of a bad Arkansas team.
Yeah, I would argue that the bottom four definitely belong at the bottom.
Yes. Those are the worst four teams in the conference.
Yeah, for sure. And South Carolina is still tough.
Yeah.
This is a really, really, really good conference slate. They're talking about possibly 14 teams getting into this NCAA tournament, which is absolutely crazy. So our guy Dave Shoemate over at SEC Unfiltered dropping his power rankings. Auburn at 1. I'll be interested to see where he puts Bama after that loss to Ole Miss. Who do they have left? Do they have another game before Monday?
Who?
Alabama.
Before Monday? Yeah, they're gonna have one. Is that when their next game is?
Oh,
Monday?
They play Kentucky. They're at Kentucky on Saturday.
Okay. And then they turn around and have a Monday game?
No. I was saying the rankings.
Oh, before the rankings. Oh, yeah. They definitely have a week. Everybody's gonna have a weekend game. So yes. Yeah. I don't think they get their week off until like 2 weeks from now or something like that. So yeah.
No, they're at Kentucky, so they might be on a 2-game skid before they can pull out of it.
That's
they got Vanderbilt at home. Yeah,
that's going to be an interesting game. Kentucky at home with the way that they're shooting the ball right now.
Mm-hmm. They got to play Kentucky twice this season.
At least they get a chance to get some get back at the crib.
Yeah.
Kentucky that's a tough game. The way Kentucky is playing offense right now and the way that Bama has been unable to stop teams that shoot the ball well, because you think back, the barn burner that they had up there with North Dakota State was just because North Dakota State was just making shots. Kentucky's been that's the reason why Kentucky and Florida was such a good game. They were just making shots, and Kentucky has continued to just be able to make shots this year. The way that they run offense. Shout out to Mark Pope, man. Mark Pope came into that Kentucky team, and people were like, he's not SEC material. He's gonna be blah blah. He got them boys out there hooping, man. So
he does. So all I'm saying is I like where Auburn's at. I think that there are a lot of potential. We talked on our last show. We talked about that 5-game stretch that Auburn has that started with Mississippi State last night. It's taking them to Athens, Tennessee next Saturday. Man, it is going to be a gauntlet. But if you're Auburn now, you maybe feel a little bit better. We were saying coming out of that stretch 3-2 would be good.
Right. Unless you're James Barnett, who said 5-0.
5-0? Okay. Listen, I'm rooting for James. I'm rooting for James's prediction.
Never lost.
Yeah, it goes. Yeah, never lost. Yeah, love it.
Let's grab a couple more comments and get out of here. Alphaholic asks, how many quad 1 games does Auburn have left? Auburn has played currently 10 quad 1 games according to the resume metrics right now. They're 9-1. And they play a total of 19. So there are 9 more quad 1 games left for Auburn on the season.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
That is a testament to the strength of the conference.
Yeah. Valencia, let's talk about our new addition to women's basketball.
Yu Ting Dang from the Chinese national team. I watched her practice on Tuesday. Good chance we could see her tomorrow night at Texas. So we'll keep an eye out on that one.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing if she's going to be able to make her debut. If she is the type of talent that I think she is, based upon me just watching, little highlight clips, she changes what Auburn's going to be able to do offensively just because she can create and make shots. And that's something that Auburn does not have in the absence of Talia Scott, as someone who can create and make shots from the outside, right? Because you've got the internal presence from Deanna Gadsden, but Deanna's the only person who you can just give the ball to and say, go get a bucket. Everybody else, unless Marshawn, is playing like she did versus Kentucky, let me just say, there were, myself included, let me not remove myself from this conversation, a lot of people questioning Marshawn's ability to be the point guard for this team. She played a hell of a game versus Kentucky.
Yeah.
I watched that game pretty much the entirety of the time. And
one of the best games I've seen her play.
she not I mean, I think she had 7 assists and 1 turnover, which is or 2 turnovers. Something I think it was the 7 assists, 2 turnovers is the ratio you want your point guard to have. But if Auburn had some people who were making some shots, she was getting people in position to get. Marshawn played a really good game. She scored when she was around the rim. She was knocking down free throws. She was willing to take jump shots. I was like, man, bring that Marshawn back for the rest of the season. If you can get that kind of performance from her at point guard, and you continue to have Deanna Gaston doing what she's been doing all year, and you add an actual scoring threat from the outside that can shoot jump shots and create their own shot like U-Team could potentially do, all you need is to maybe get Talia back in the mix. And you've got a dangerous squad. So, and there are still people working themselves back into the health situation. Taylor Collins isn't 100% right now. Celia's not 100% right now. Brain farts. Yakaya is still battling some injury stuff, trying to work herself back into 100%. Soraya is not feeling 100% right now. So they're not even at full strength. And they've got an opportunity to rattle off some here. Texas is going to be a tough one, though, because that is another very good defensive squad. And we'll see how it goes with this next game here inside of Neville Arena. That is tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken, at Neville with Texas. Let's see here. Ernest Vaughn says the Kentucky guys are all new. Cal doubled down on his roster last season, and looking at Arkansas, it wasn't a smart move. Cal is cooked. He did. He was like, man, I like these guys that we have. Let's just transfer them all over there to Arkansas and see if we can do it. Minus 2 of the best players on the team last year, who both went to the league, and see if we can rekindle some magic. And it has not worked. They look absolutely lost out there offensively. They're not able to knock down shots when they're open. Defensively, they aren't rotating very well. Like Arkansas really I say there are no bad teams in the SEC, but Arkansas legitimately has been looking bad. Yeah, I mean, they looked okay in the non-con, but in conference, they have not looked good in a single one of these games. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's get out of here, Mike. Tell the people ways that they can support what's going on with the War Report.
First and foremost, want to thank our title sponsor, the Rage Room. Visit them in Opelika or in Birmingham. The addresses are there for you guys. We appreciate them for sponsoring the War Report. As always, hit that join button. Join the Green Name Gang. We appreciate our community for supporting us financially always. I want to run through our sponsors. Los Amigos Restaurant. Go check them out at 1220 Fox Run Ave in Opelika, Alabama, if you're hungry, or if you're in for some fine dining. Vintage 2298 Restaurant. Visit them at 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. Manscaped.com. Use code REPORTER, get 20% off plus free shipping. Joining the over 11 million men worldwide who have trusted Manscaped with their personal grooming and care. And if you're trying to relax, our friends at the Rogue Shop, visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORTER to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Check us out on podcast, every single podcast network. The Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods, along with Sooner Spotlight, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. And before we get out of here, just make sure you make fun of this dude on the left. He's ridiculous, and we hope he doesn't win anything next year.
I'm all for the heckling of that young man. All right, share the video before you get out of here. Make sure somebody else knows about the War Report. If whatever rock they're living under, they don't know about the War Report, then make sure you shine that light underneath that rock. Like the video before you get out of here, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're all over social media at the War Report, TW Report on TikTok. We'll be back at you guys with more great content. Got some stuff dropping from the Auburn Express in the morning, and we got more basketball content coming at you guys. Make sure you check out the women's basketball team tomorrow. We're out of here until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.